Hello, everyone, to this first C2C Care webinar of 2026. This has proven to end up being a pretty popular topic amongst this group. So I'm going to give it just a minute or so for the room to populate and make sure people can pop in. But as always, this is a timely bunch, which is always wonderful to see. With that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, everyone should be able to see my presentation. Okay, great. And I see folks already in the chat, which is wonderful. Well, I want to go ahead and welcome everyone to, again, this first C2C Care webinar of 2026. You're here for revisiting basic condition reporting, updated insights, and digital methods. We'll be running from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern today, so just heads up on that. To introduce myself, in case we have some new folks, my name is Robin Bauer-Kilgo. I am the C2C Care Coordinator, and I am located just outside of Washington, D.C. in Silver Spring, Maryland, where we have spent the past couple days chiseling out our cars and floors and sidewalks and everything else from the ice storm that has come through. I hope everyone's being safe and doing well. Again, since this is our first one of the year, I wanted to introduce our program. It's connecting to collections.org. We are here to provide once a month free webinars via our platform, which you guys are here experiencing today. We are also a group that provides courses, some in-depth look at different collection topics. I'll be talking a little bit about one of our upcoming courses here in a minute. And we are also a host for a fabulous community with a wonderful group of volunteers, where if you happen to have a question about anything to do with collections care issues, you can post a question to that community, and we have this wonderful group of people who will actually go out and find you some real world action ways to kind of deal with them. So I would encourage you to look around our website when you have a chance. We post announcements, obviously, on our website for upcoming programming, and also on Facebook at C2C Community, and also on LinkedIn. So if you happen to follow either of those social media accounts, I would encourage you to go look at that groups as well. Upcoming programming note for C2C Care, like I said, we do one free webinar a month. We are currently almost ready to launch our February webinar, which will be about flag storage. So I would say keep an eye on our website, looking forward to that. March 2026, we have 2 topics that we're looking at right now. It should be open for registration in a few weeks. And we also have our April webinar already open for registration. It's called Water Management 101, Safeguarding Collections in Small and Mid-Sized Institutions, all about kind of water abatement and issues you can look at when it comes to kind of housing our collections. So if you want to register for that one right now, I would encourage you to go to our website. We're also going to be launching a course, which is all about environmental monitoring. It's going to be a collaboration with the group Conserve, which is a fabulous group of people to work with. That one's going to be running from March to May 2026, and will be under our course area. So it's going to be a slightly more in-depth look at environmental monitoring. That will be open for registration shortly as well. A couple of quick tech reminders for our program. You can actually communicate to us via the chat, which I see everyone doing quite handily, so I don't feel the need to explain the chat. But I would say just make sure that you are posting to everyone or just the panelists whenever you want to with a drop-down box. The chat is there for basically general communication. So if you want to use it to just kind of tell us hello, let us know kind of what's going on, maybe a technical issue you're happening, please communicate to us via the chat. We have also enabled a Q&A box. The Q&A box is there for questions. So if you have questions at any point during today's program, please put it in that Q&A box. That way we can track the question itself. There will be a dedicated Q&A portion at the end of this program. I will also note that we should be recording today's program. So if you have to dip out early, no worries. You can always take a look at our recording afterwards. I'm actually going to confirm that right now just to be sure. Yes, we are recording. So we'll just know that as well. We also are trying out a new transcription service called Wordly. Wordly is a really great service that will actually enable real-time transcription. that will actually translate to a bunch of different languages all at the same time. You can actually access this two different ways. I'm going to be sharing something in the chat right now. 1 second. Which hopefully it'll share. If it doesn't, we will be sending it out in a separate communication where you can download the app itself to the service and you can use it within Zoom itself. Or if you scan that QR code, it'll pop up in a separate web browser. And then that way you can kind of watch the real world translation happening. So again, if it didn't go through the chat, I'll make sure to do it once I stop sharing my screen. But in the meantime, if you want to go to that URL on the screen or scan the QR code, you can actually go view it at the same time. And it seems like a pretty great service. So I would encourage you guys to go take a look at it. I also like to remind people that C2C Care is a fabulous resource that is provided help with a grant from IMLS, along with help from individual donors. If you have benefited from connecting to Collections Care, please consider a gift today. Our funding has been interesting over the past year. We are very grateful to be supported by an IMLS grant right now. But at the same time, individual donors have helped us immensely over the past few months. So again, if you are able to, please feel free to share and donate when you can. Another exciting thing about our program today is it is based on an updated book that we all have probably seen and used and loved in many different ways. This new edition is called Basic Condition Reporting, a Handbook, 5th edition. The group Bloomsbury has actually offered us a 20% discount for those of you attending the session today. So if you scan that QR code or go to the link on the page and type in that code, you will get 20% off the book. I will also share the information in the chat in a few minutes. So finally, I get to introduce our program today after all those notes at the top of the program. This is actually a really welcomed update to a basic condition reporting webinar that happened over almost 10 years ago, called Basic Condition Reporting. Now that webinar has been at the top of our YouTube view list for years, and we've always thought, well, it'd be great to kind of revisit that at some point. That being said, if you want to get a really good basic overview on basic condition reporting, and we're going to go into that a little bit today, we still encourage you to go access that original webinar. The information in it is really good. The presenter's great. So if you're interested, go to that website and you'll be able to view the original program itself. But today we are going to be revisiting condition reporting and kind of look at how it's changed in some of the updated digital ways people are looking at it. Now, this is condition reporting from a registrar's viewpoint, more of a general assessment, kind of how we've had to deal with them when it comes to incoming loans or if you're doing an assessment. So I ask you to keep that in mind as well. We have 3 presenters today going to talk to us a bit about digital condition reporting. We have Heather Culligan, who's registrar and collections manager at the Ashley Gibson Barnett Museum of Art at Florida Southern College. We also have Tommie Rodgers, registrar at the Lauren Rogers Museum of Art, and Catherine Steiner, chief registrar at the Mint Museum, all talking about different aspects of condition reporting. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Heather to start off our program today. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat and I will see you all at the Q&A period afterwards. So Heather, feel free to take over whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and wanted to thank all of you for attending today. As Robin mentioned, my name is Heather Culligan, and I'm going to be talking about just the basic condition reporting, like at a very high level overview from a registrar's point of view. But before we get started, I wanted to thank C2C Care for hosting us and allowing us to talk about condition reporting in the first place. Obviously, this topic remains incredibly important to those working with museum collections. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also thank my fellow co-editors, Deborah Rose Van Horn and Corinne Midget, who could not be here with us today, but were crucial to the development of this book, as well as the several authors featured in the book, including including Tommie and Catherine, who you'll be hearing from in just a moment. And then finally, I wanted to thank Sarah, the Southeastern Registrars Association, for contributing to and supporting this publication. Without all of these individuals and organizations, we would not be here having this discussion. Now, as Robin mentioned, if you're interested in obtaining your own copy of the book, they are offering a discount, which is available from Bloomsbury Publishing. So my role today is to provide a brief overview of general condition reporting. Perhaps you're new to the field, new to museum collections work. Maybe you need a refresher, or maybe you just really love condition reporting like all of us do. But whatever your reason for being here today, my goal is to explain what condition reporting is, why we do it, and how we do it. So first things first, what is a condition report? A condition report documents an object's physical state in a specific moment in time. So over time, condition reports can provide a detailed history of a specific object. Today, my co-presenters will talk about how to complete a condition report digitally, but can also be handwritten, or you can even type it directly into your database or your CMS. No matter the format, a condition report should include the following basic information. First off, the object information, right? This would include the object number, perhaps the object name or title, and of course, a brief description of the object. I always think it's really important to have that brief description and these other components about the object as well. You should also include why you're completing the condition report. And I'm going to go over a variety of reasons why you would do a condition report, but I think it's important to note actually on the form or in your database or digitally why you're doing this. And of course, the most important part is we actually need a description of the condition, right? It's not a condition report unless we do that. And then finally, we really want to make sure that we document who did the condition report and when. And the when, I would say, is the most important, just because hopefully you will accumulate a lot of condition reports over time. And this can help you track the condition of the same object. Now, oops, I advanced too quickly. Now, can there be more fields or more information than just this? Absolutely. You can honestly include whatever you want on your condition report. But from my point of view, if you're looking for the basics, something quick, this information I think is enough and a really great starting point for you. Now, why should a condition report be completed? Why on earth would we do this? And the first, we really have to document the condition in order to care for the object properly, right? We have to be proper stewards of the objects in our collection. And assessing the condition regularly and completing condition reports is really crucial to our profession. Another good reason to do this is for preventive conservation. Perhaps you you want to make sure that your storage area, that your objects are really being taken care of in the appropriate way. And what I always like to say about preventive conservation and condition reports together is that you're able to see what the object needs in that moment. And what do I mean by that? So that may mean perhaps you're doing a condition report and you're thinking, gosh, this object needs a new box. I need to note that I need to order new boxes, or maybe I need to order extra tissue paper for this object. Again, thinking about those preventive conservation steps that we take as part of our roles can be an excellent reason to do a condition report. Another reason is a new acquisition. Something brand new is getting into your collection and you want to document the condition as it exists from the moment you took possession of it. Again, to start that history of condition reporting in your permanent records. And of course, you also want to do condition reporting for incoming and outgoing loans. Usually this is for exhibitions, but it's really important and might also be part of your incoming and outgoing loan agreements to make sure that you're documenting the condition when it comes in and then before you send it out. Other reasons, perhaps you're doing a conservation assessment or developing a conservation plan for your collection, and you kind of need to know where to start. I've also heard of examples of people trying to create a conservation plan like tier system for their collection. And so doing a condition report for everything in your collection can kind of help you navigate which object might need conservation treatment or which ones might be okay for the next few years. Another reason to do a condition report, insurance or appraisal purposes. Between incoming outgoing loans and appraisal purposes kind of edges it out. For me personally, at my museum, I do a lot of condition reports for appraisal purposes and for insurance. So this usually comes from an outside request, but it could be something you decide to do internally as well. In either case, conservation reports are crucial. And I've also found that completing condition reports are really great learning opportunities for interns, for volunteers. I work at an academic art museum, so we have students in our museum all the time. And so I found that this is a great way to teach them a variety of skills, but it also helps us document conditions of our objects. And of course, I had to include maybe you just want to do condition reports for fun. Some of us love data entry, and that's kind of our fun, easy afternoon activity. For others, it could be condition reporting. I love it if you love condition reporting. So, what do you need in order to complete your condition report? Obviously, what you need is dependent on how you're doing the condition report. Whatever the format, digitally or non-digitally, you'll need the following to complete the documentation. First, you need the form, right? This is our form that we use here at the AGB. And again, this could be the physical or the digital. If you're doing with the handwritten physical form, you're going to need something to write with. Of course, you need a pencil is preferred over a pen, but you could also use a computer or a tablet. And then I also always recommend to bring past condition reports to help you understand the past condition history of the object. Hopefully you have a lot of them like in this image, but you might only have one or two, but that's okay. I think it's important to bring those along with you. And then, of course, a camera is always important to document the object in that real time. I'm a little bit old school. I still prefer a real digital camera to using my own personal phone. But you can also use your own phone or a tablet if you have one, just as long as you take those photos. Other items you might need, of course, you need the object, right? You can't condition report the object without the object. So this is a piece from our collection. And so you need to make sure that you have the object with you. You also need a clean, clutter-free space that is padded with either a clean moving blanket or object-safe foam like Ethafoam or Velara. A clean padded cart would also be needed to transport the object. And of course, key to all of this are object handling skills. You need to understand the best way to move the object and take into consideration, are there weak spots? Are there previous repairs? You need to know if gloves are going to be required for that particular material or object. And also, do you need assistance to move that object? If so, you need to plan accordingly. How many people do you need and how are you going to move the object? Other items you might need is a measuring tape. We prefer cloth or like a soft measuring tape. Gloves if needed for that particular object. A flashlight is always really helpful to really illuminate the object and allow you to see really, really into those sometimes dark spaces that can hide out. And a magnification device, handheld or it could be in a camera, is also helpful. And something I also thought about too, sometimes you might need extra support materials. Maybe you need some tissue, some extra board or padding, just something to consider to have around just in case. So you have all of your tools and the object, and you're ready to begin. So what exactly are we writing down or typing? And remember, the purpose is to document the object as it is in that moment. So what does that mean? Document what you see. So I've circled some areas on our piece that sort of initially drew my attention. So what I'm seeing, you can see some discoloration. You might see some losses or scratches. Perhaps you're doing something on paper and it might be a tear or some creases, or maybe it's faded in a certain area. Oftentimes, the type of object and material will determine the type of damage you're looking for in the object. And this is where the book can be really helpful because it does a great job of outlining the type of material and then the common types of damage associated with that material. So importantly, there are common terms used to describe types of damage for certain objects and materials. If you own a copy of the book, this is where it can really come in handy. You can bring it with you and open it to the list of terms commonly used, and it can be really helpful. Now, if you don't have access to it, or maybe you're just not really familiar with those terms, that's okay too. The condition report can still be done, and you can use common terms, like I mentioned earlier, scratch, tear, crease, to describe the damage. Importantly, and I'll reiterate again, you just have to document what you see and what you're observing about the object. Now, the other half of the how is to document where the damage is observed on the object. We have to know where it is in order to properly document the condition over time. This is how we can determine if the damage is new, is it old, or maybe it's worsened over time. Maybe you're looking at this crack and it's a lot longer this year than it was last year. So there are two common ways to document the location of the damage on the object. The first is the zone system, which you see here on the screen and we'll talk about first. And the second is a term system. Using the zone system as seen in the diagram, you'll divide the object into sections and then describe where the damage is by zone or section. So for example, you can see 9 zones in this diagram. You can, starting at the top, be top left is TL, top center, top right, center left, center, center right, bottom left, bottom center, and bottom right. So if you see paint loss, for example, in your object, you would note on the condition report, paint loss TR, or paint loss TR, BR, and C if you see it in multiple areas. To be more specific, you can also include measurements. For example, you could say paint loss 2 inches from edge TR. It can also be helpful to include the zone system diagram on your condition report form. This allows you to write and diagram the damage at the same time. The zone system is really great for 2-dimensional objects, but perhaps not as helpful for 3-dimensional objects. So sometimes the term system can be a better option for 3D. But just to be clear, the term system can also be used for 2D objects. It's honestly just a matter of preference and what makes you feel more comfortable. Using the term system, you can use common terms such as lid, rim, edge, top, or base can be helpful when referencing damage. Other terms like proper left, referring to the object's left side, or as I tell my students, if you are the object, then proper left would be the left side of the object, or the viewer's left from the viewpoint of the person doing their report are also common. Finally, using terms to describe damage using an object's landmarks can also be helpful. So for example, in the piece that I'm sharing now, you might document a scratch above the U in much at the bottom, or a tear on the proper right side of the red eye. So, as I mentioned, whether you use the zone system or term system, again, the goal is to document the condition of the object in that moment of time and use what makes you more comfortable, the most comfortable in doing condition reports. So, I hope that this was helpful, this quick general overview. And now I'm going to hand it over to Tommie to discuss digital condition reporting.
Okay, Robin, I don't see my presentation at the moment on here. It was here earlier.
Okay, I'm happy to share my screen. Just give me, oh,
Let's see here. Is it coming now? Okay.
right now we see your Zoom screen. So if you want to click on the PowerPoint presentation to see where that might be.
Go. Yay. It was there.
Totally fine. There you go.
Okay, here we go. Thank you, Heather, and for Robin, for getting this presentation together for us today. And I'm kind of excited. I haven't even dug into this subject in a long time with other people, and we're looking at basic tools of the trade, right? Our from day one, we have the very basics, and I think Heather discussed that. And I've been here at the museum for 35 years now, and I thought I would never have the opportunity to get away from written forms. So while some people love written forms, I prefer digital when I can. So it is a preference, and we'll talk a little more about that. So when I wrote the section or the chapter for the basic condition reporting book, I thought, what is it that ties it all together? What is my overall arching theme of for the registrar? What are we doing? Everything feeds back to our collections management database or our software or our master files. So behind this person you can see in the photo are all the filing cabinets. Every object has a file. And ultimately, we as registrars like to keep a paper copy of something and something in the database so that we do have, our bases are covered. We have documented the information and we do have proof that it's there in case something happens and something is destroyed in the future. But I'd never found using the software to be so user-friendly for me when I'm going into storage or I'm going into a gallery or I'm going outside to sculpture or even off-site for condition reporting. And it just, it was never the right tool. In 2012, I started doing some condition reporting digitally with my iPad. And I thought, well, this is kind of an interesting way to consider this. But I also felt a little bit like a lone ranger. I didn't really have anybody to bounce ideas off of. Is this easier? Am I taking more time? And I may be taking more time because I'm having to learn the software too. At the time, I was playing with Articheck a little bit. And then 2020, the this presentation of dreaming of a new collections management software came out, and they were really honest about the fact that most databases were not so user friendly for going into the field, going into the galleries, going into spaces that were not your desk and your desktop. And so I thought, well, okay, so I'm not the only one who's considering this as maybe not quite so user friendly and perfect to be doing digital condition reports like this on the permanent collection. I don't do a lot of permanent collection condition reports. I do them as we're changing galleries, maybe doing updates in the permanent collection, or if there's research that the curator is doing, I may do some, and or if there are long-term loans coming in or going out of the museum. So Robin, would you push out that first poll for me, please? Okay, this is the basic form from Past Perfect. It's the nuts and bolts of whatever you need to write, but there's no place to put an image. And in this day and time, it's vital that we have a photograph of either the overall piece or zoom images of specific damage. It's too easy to start that. So then we get into, well, what my database looks like if I were going to do a condition report straight at my desk. There is a box there for images, for lots of images, if you want to throw those in there. And the particular report you're looking at is from a conservator who is doing a mass group of objects for us in preparation of an exhibition long-term installation. Now we see an example of a paper-based form that was created in a Word document and edited through PDF Expert. Again, I was playing on the iPad at that time, trying to learn what I could do. I'm a very visual person. I like color changes just because it takes my eye straight to it. So this was groundbreaking for me to be able to do this and to be able to email my reports straight out from the desk here as I organized my thoughts and could get the information down. But here we're in 2026. I love cell phone photography. I love that I can edit immediately on site in place and have a picture. You know, I could send multiple pictures through an email, and I did recently on crates that came in damaged, and I marked up those crates even on the imagery, and it was just amazing. And your email itself is dated for the specific date unless you have, you know, lagged and had some time in there. So you always have to put that date in there so that everybody knows when and how things happen. And to look at Articheck, like I said, this was the one that I was playing with as soon as, you know, I heard this was out and available. And going back to that dreaming of a new collections management software system was a good starting point for me to get information. I realized then that, you know, these two have to operate independently of each other. Your CMS operates independently from a program like Articheck, although the Articheck documents can be transferred over into the database for long-term storage and documentation. But again, I was playing on a tablet, and then I later went to the phone to use it, and there's a little bit of a learning curve on pulling those objects, like you're making a circle or a rectangle, or you want to draw free-handedly onto the image. But I could enlarge and see things a little easier on what I was doing. And so I was making progress in learning that. And I will have to say that over the years, I've had maybe 2 traveling exhibits come in here that were sent with the whole exhibition logged into Articheck. And that link was shared with me. It was amazing. And I didn't have to create those reports from scratch. So the traveling company did that. And I didn't have to read 10 other entries from where the exhibit had traveled to and from. I was just comparing condition today from when it started its traveling route from the very beginning. And it was instant. It logged right back to the other institution. And I thought this is where it's most helpful for me. We have a small institution and we have about 3 traveling exhibitions per year, 3 to 4, and we don't have many staff members. So, you know, that was kind of crucial in helping me kind of get over the digital hump. And then there's Exhibit, and I've never used it, but it's very much a software to help with logistics of pulling an exhibition together, where it's conditioning of crates or how things are packed, the locations of where it's going to, down to the, you can see the numbered marks on this particular image that came from their website. So they're coordinating with their descriptions there. Now I'm going to move into a survey that I conducted in 2020 in hopes that this would help me write the section for the book, because again, I felt like I was floating out there without much other feedback from other people. And I just didn't know where registrars were in this world of having the capability and how many were really comfortable using it. So I was amazed. There were 55 people who responded, but most of them were all still doing paper-based condition reports. And I'm just going to jump here and share some of these so you can see where some used their past perfect, somebody used Articheck, but then they were experimenting, but budget restrictions kept them from jumping into it wholeheartedly. And I will say that these systems will allow you to purchase a few reports or bulk. You may have unlimited use for a year. You may have, hey, I want to buy 100 of these reports. And I think if the option that they have is not available that you might need, I think you're perfectly fine asking how they might can help you be able to afford to use reports, especially if you're going to do things in mass. Maybe you want to try to do 100 reports over the next year of your permanent collection. But to figure out how you can budget those into your system just to be able to get some things notated. Here's another person says they're old school. They like to use paper. And some of these people also like to hand draw things. And I will say with aging eyes, we don't really talk about our eyes when we talk about executing condition reports. But if we don't have good, sharp eyes and can see the details that we need to, that becomes a problem. So I think the digital images have helped me to be able to zoom in, to enlarge things. I also have a problem with reading traveling exhibition condition reports where there are 10 people who've had this piece or these pieces before you, and they've all written in pencil. And everybody, and yes, we need to write in pencil, but everyone's handwriting is different, and it just lacks the consistency because you are expected to read not only the first report from the originating location, but every report in between there. So it can become very time consuming and not necessarily user friendly when you're trying to unpack and install pieces and hit your opening day mark along with that. But this person also wishes there were a consensus for one program that they can move forward with. It's not necessarily easy to take time to try out everything. And again, this person is paper-based. And I'm just going to click through these a little bit. And if you wanted to go back and read those, that's fine. But again, the budget and paper-based time. Someone else has experimented with Articheck a little bit. And then someone else here posts that they put their photo and paper document together and then scan sometimes and send them, again, a fillable PDF, which is great. You could drop your image in and make notes. And here's someone using a combination. And I would say that's where I am. We're forced to do paper ones when they come with an exhibition, and most of the time. And I would love to see the option to come as digital or paper if you so choose. Reasons to explore condition reporting options is speed. How do you feel like you can get things done quicker? Consistency. Again, going back to people's handwriting. We can't always read or decipher what they're saying, or it takes a lot of extra time to do it. Comfort, ease of use. Some exhibits come with not only one big binder of condition reports, but they may come with 2 or 3 big binders. And yes, it can become a little bundlesome when you have your carts full and you're jumping, maybe not in their numerical order, but according to how things are packed possibly, which may or may not correspond. Monetary cost, you have to explore the subscription versus the non-subscription based options that are there. And Heather touched on varied objects, like varied materials, things that maybe things that are 2D, but some things that are 3-dimensional and have maybe unorthodox materials, and you kind of got to figure out a common language for those. The book is helpful with that in being able to pull out things of specific objects. You have to talk about maybe a piece of metal or a piece of jewelry or I don't know, a car, a railroad car. I'm not into museums that have locomotives, but there are those that exist. And then hindrances of going digital. Some people may have a poor internet connection in their building or on their location site, which makes it hard sometimes to take a tablet with you. More phones have a better capability than possibly a tablet or a laptop sometimes. Poor screen quality if you're doing a condition report of a sculpture outdoors. Budget restrictions. Again, you may have limited equipment and may not have the funds to be able to purchase and add that equipment. Lack of knowledge and understanding of software on the receiving end. So if I create 30 condition reports for an exhibit I'm sending out, the person on the receiving end may or may not know how to facilitate, or at least in a speedy way, to go through those condition reports on their phone or their tablet if I'm sending them through Articheck. And then again, the varied objects, just trying to keep your head wrapped around what those all are. And I'll finish with this slide, and I almost forgot the second polling question. Robin, can you send that out? See if we'll have time. That's a very quick one.
Sure. But why don't, before we do that, let's go ahead and share the results from this one, just so everyone
Okay,
can see it, if that sounds okay. Do you mind
sure.
reading the question and kind of the results out loud?
Okay. For your permanent collection, do you mostly use paper condition report forms? 45 out of 212 respondents say they do. So that's 21%, as well as paper condition reports saved as PDFs. So we're one less in 44 of respondents said that. We're right at the same percentage though. Desktop collections management software, 28% of you, 60 out of 212 people respond that they do them directly in their collections management software. 2%, which is 5 people, respond that they use a condition reporting app. And 58 of you, which is 27%, say you use a combination of all of the above. Okay.
And then I'll go ahead and launch the second question.
Okay. Have you been the recipient of a shared digital condition reporting app for an incoming traveling exhibition? Yes or no? Okay, and I will just touch on this diagram here. To me, everything for us comes back to that collections management software program or our master paper files that we have. So therefore, whatever we do needs to be able to fit or be able to be copied into it or scanned into it. It's an easy thing to do. You have these maybe images stored in your phone and then you've not done anything with them. So we need to act quickly with those. It's easy to forget about them. They're stored on your iPad or a laptop, and you just haven't gotten around to making them into a file, whether paper or digital, one of the two. But we do need to be timely when we do that, especially when you're thinking of your permanent collection, because it's easy to let yourself put that on the back burner. But the people who use condition reports, I like to look at the big bubble for a conservator because they're going to have the absolute most knowledge and verbal knowledge on describing things, but the rest of us are going to have minimal knowledge of that. We need quick words. We need, hey, there's a crack in this particular piece of pottery in the leg or the foot. So the others of us who are using it need quick, concise, clean language that's easy to understand. So we're looking at a paper form that's can be used in a PDF editor, condition reporting software, or your cell phone photo that's marked in particular ways and then used into a document in some way. Now, the results of that question, have you been the recipient of a shared digital condition reporting app for a traveling exhibition, says that 10% of you, yes, have received it. There's 20 people, and then 90% says no. So that's something that maybe we can rally around exhibit distributors for. Okay. And thank you all. And I'm going to hand it over to Catherine. Let's see if I
Tommie, can you stop sharing?
Yes, there we go.
There we go. Okay, I've been asked to share how we use digital tools for condition reporting here at the Mint. And I want to start by telling you that I am out there with you in the trenches every day. For most registrars, the truth is that we don't have time to do all of the things for all of the tasks at hand. And so what I'm proposing is that we look at best practices just a little differently. Sometimes just showing up and doing the best you can is a better option than doing nothing. I'd like to show you how we use digital condition reporting not to replace paper, but as a tool for making things easier. So let's review best practices very quickly. One, you need to date every report. Two, you need to identify what object you're condition reporting. Three, you need to make sure that the report is understandable for anyone who comes after you. And just a word about this. One of the things that's frustrating for me is when we've had exhibitions that have traveled to other countries or have received exhibitions from other countries. Just keep in mind that the person on the other end may not speak the same language you do. One of the things that's nice about advances in technology is that we've been able to add lots of images, and this has made it a lot easier to do these things. So over the past 25 years in the field, I've noticed a trend. We're taking more and more and more images, and we're actually writing less narrative. This is a good thing. I think I probably spend more time now on average, taking pictures and annotating them than I did before. But my condition reports are much stronger. They're much more detailed and easier to understand. I do a lot more good enough condition reports these days. What do I mean by good enough? Well, it has a date. It's clear what object is being referenced. It's basically understandable to the next person who comes along. I can find it when I go look for it. Do I always engage in best practices? Probably not. But as I said, sometimes perfection is the enemy of good enough. So what do I mean by good enough? Well, it's a range. Here's my good enough baseline. This is rock bottom, 4 quadrants of a painting. Before you go this basic, you need to ask who will be using these images and how far out in the future. If it's you in a few months, you're probably going to understand what you're looking at. If it's someone else or a lot of time will pass, you might want to provide more detail. Let me emphasize that this is not a substitution for looking at the object. Don't just take a picture and go to the next thing. If you're only taking images, you need to take details of everything that's wrong, which means you need to look carefully before you even start shooting. Which leads me to the next criteria you need to meet before you go this basic. The piece needs to be in really good condition, the kind of condition where you would only make a few notes at most. In this case, the batik was perfect and the frame only had a few dings. If the piece has lots of issues, you'll spend more time photographing and then looking at the images later to verify things than you would have if you'd just written a few words. There are 2 exceptions to this rule. First is something where you're okay with general wear and tear. We did a vignette several years ago to mimic a lender's living room, and we borrowed a lot of their books and magazines. There were over 100 items, and most had wear and tear, but because of the nature of the objects and the relative ease of replacing them, we just took quick snapshots and moved on. Second exception to my rule that you shouldn't go baseline for an object with lots of issues. If you can't take time to look at the object, at least take a picture. Don't mistake this for a condition report, but at least you have a record. Try to get back and do the real thing as soon as you can. I do want to mention here also that if you're going to be basic, give future you an advantage by setting some file naming and storage protocols so that you can find the image later. In our case, we use the accession number COND for condition, the letter V for view, plus a number to indicate different views, and we try to capture those views in a logical order. Then we also often date the photograph and the name. The date is less critical because it can be found in the metadata, but dating the photo in the title saves a little time for us. Typically, though, we go a little more complex. We start with a blank template that we fill in. We use PDF Expert, but you should find what works best for you. We use page 1 to record how the object is packed. Page 2 gives the object details. You can see with the date blank at the bottom right that I don't always manage to hit the line accurately. Don't get wound up in those details. If it's legible, you've done well enough. And remember, you're trying to make your life better, not more aggravating. For us, the main advantage to digital is being able to mark up images on the fly. When we do details, we try to shoot a larger image that points you to the specific so that you can find where the issue is. If you'll notice in this slide, you can see how very deliberately the line goes from the title in the more comprehensive image to the exact same tile in the detail. As you all know, things go a lot quicker if you can orient yourself properly. It's also worth noting things that aren't really an issue but could be perceived as an issue. There we go. Finally, we have a sign-off page like any other condition report. We have traveled with iPads for exhibitions and done condition reports digitally, but we've also printed our digital condition reports at this point and done the rest by hand. Here's a quick markup done in Paint. Paint's a little harder to work with than some programs because it has fewer features. In this case, I made sure to have some extra space in the image so that I could add a white box to make notes. On this markup, I've used different colors to note different issues. A word of caution, you want your life to be easier, not harder, so don't go crazy with all the colors and shapes. Just transfer what you know about working on paper to the digital format. Finally, I want to show you an example of a hybrid report. In this case, the page at the top left with the handwritten notes was produced digitally, but then marked up on paper and scanned in. There were also notes made to a couple of detail images that were done in the digital file. We scanned the whole thing in, so now the handwritten notes are saved digitally, though you'll also find this report in the paper file. Finally, we have multiple additional images saved for this piece, and they're stored in a place that I was easily able to find them. You'll see that we never renamed them, so just let me remind you here that I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about getting the job done. Would it be better if we named those files appropriately and connected everything in the database? Absolutely. But this is a loan that will go back within 2 years, and I'll be able to locate this information as long as I need to do so. Again, I'm arguing that we can't make best practice the enemy of just doing something. So one little fun anecdote about the value of an image. We deaccessioned a group of worn lace fragments that we then gave to an artist to make a piece that was exhibited here at the museum. The final artwork was tempting to touch and was damaged while it was installed. We fixed the damage and did our best to prevent touching, given the artist's desire for accessibility of our work. When the work was returned to the artist, she noticed some holes that she thought were further damage. We knew the original lace had been in bad shape, so we went back to the database. We were able to identify the original piece, and from a lousy snapshot taken years before digital and then scanned into the database, we could tell that the holes were pre-existing. Here's why even just a snapshot without any notes is better than nothing. I just want to emphasize here that I'm not advocating that we skip proper condition reporting. In fact, I'm saying that where we might once have skipped doing a report altogether, we now have tools that can help us at least record something. Ultimately, it doesn't matter whether you're doing digital or paper condition reports. It all boils down to a few things. First, what are you looking at? File names or notes on a condition report can make that clear. Second, when are you looking at it? Condition reports don't exist in a vacuum. You need to know how time X compares to time Y. Digitally, there's metadata that can carry this information. On paper, date it. Third, what do you see? Okay, this is obvious and the entire point of doing a condition report. But again, whether on paper or digital, will you be able to decipher what you meant when you look at this again? Finally, how are you going to find this information again? Is it a printed copy in the accession file, Are you storing digital records in a way that you can retrieve them? What will help future you? Again, this is all much easier if you take a little time to set up protocols that everyone can follow and that your successors will recognize. Thanks for your time. If you have questions, Robin is going to pull those from the chat and we'll answer as much as we can.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to put an extremely long post in the chat right now that basically gives links to resources available. We have copies of everyone's presentations on there, a link to the flyer for the discount that we had mentioned at the top of the program, and also a link to the survey. We always encourage everyone to take the survey if they can, because that helps us figure out future programming for C2C care. One thing while we let everyone kind of put in questions into the Q&A box, I wanted to point out was, I was thinking about when we were just talking about digital condition reporting is you have to really think about, and you all said this, what the purpose of these are for, right? For traveling exhibits, it's pretty obvious, right? Like you're trying to make sure that as it goes from point A to point B, you're not seeing huge damage. You know what I mean? That everything's being pretty stable, condition is good. As many people know, I'm also an independent contractor. I've been hired to go do condition reports for clients. So sometimes you end up walking into a place and being like, I need to make my own form. I need to take my own pictures. But a lot of it is that hybrid, combining two things. So I think it's good that you guys all pointed that out, that you have to think about your audience. What is the purpose? How much time do you have to dedicate to this? I do feel like, and I kind of want to get everyone's take on this, I don't see these aspects of digital condition reporting going anywhere, right? Like when I first started my professional career, people would still send hard photos every once in a while. And then I saw like the digitals take over. So do you see this trend continuing? Do you see more of a hybrid approach happening to people doing a little bit of paper and a little bit of digital, or do you see it going full digital in the future? And I'll throw it out to anyone to answer that question while our audience puts some questions in the Q&A box.
I think when things get more organized with, computer software, that eventually things are going to go digital. But I think that's a long time in the future. I know, for us, when we've traveled shows with digital condition reports, we've traveled, the courier has traveled with the iPad, and has done most of the condition reports because, it's hard to take on that if if you aren't familiar with the form, if you aren't familiar with how the other institution is doing it, it's a lot. So, so for the most part, we now travel paper condition reports. It was an experiment, but it failed. But I do think over time it's going to change.
Heather and Tommie, what's been your experience? Do you see this trend continuing, or do you see it going away, or what do you?
I tend to think that as younger people are in the business and are so natural with their phones, they're going to want to be digital from the very beginning. I'm a hybrid person, and whatever works best for the situation, because sometimes, you have one particular loan and it may or may not be easier to do one over the other. But eventually, the main thing is you have documented it and it's in a file somewhere, whether it's a digital file or your paper file long term with all that basic information. Paper will fade eventually. Those colors will fade. So yes, it would be good to know that we're documenting something for long-term storage too.
And I agree. I think, I still use handwritten, but my students, I just taught a collections management course, and I think one of the first questions is like, we can't do this on the computer. So I think as new students and as new emerging professionals come in, I do think it's going to be a hybrid. And also something that we didn't really touch on, but sometimes resources can be so limited in museums, and doing digital condition report might not be even possible. Maybe you don't even have funds to get a laptop for your collection space. And so, other things to think of that might sort of keep us in the handwritten. But I think certainly we're headed to a mix for sure.
Yeah, agreed. There's a couple questions that come in that I want to hit about just more like tools, like what people are using. Someone asked if anyone have you ever used a UV torch, or do you stick more with like flashlights when you deal with it? I know I've seen a lot of my friends who are painting conservators use UV torches on artwork, but as a registrar, what do you tend to use? Just flashlights, or have you seen those kind of higher level light sticks, for lack of a different way?
I use flashlights. I have seen them, but I use a flashlight. I don't know about Catherine and Tommy.
I use a flashlight and sometimes the flashlight on my phone
Hmm.
because it's what I have on me where I am in the location of the building.
Yeah, we start with flashlights. If we notice something that looks like it might be an issue, we'll pull out a black light to look at it. But it's not standard practice for us at all. We're way more basic than that. We're just trying to. Actually, it's funny. We were all talking about this before the audience came in, but you know, we try we're just trying to make sure that nothing is wrong that's going to continue to go wrong. We're more looking at things on a high level, bird's eye view, where we then say to ourselves, oh, wait, I need to get a conservator in to look at this more closely.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Someone did ask, and I think it's good to say this because I think sometimes we just accept this as fact, kind of like the glove question. But someone asked, why is pencil preferred to pen for condition reporting? Heather, can you answer
Ex
that?
Yeah, excellent question. So obviously, if you're doing handwritten ones, and if you write something that's incorrect, you can just erase it. But I also like to give the worst case scenario. If you accidentally drop the pencil on the object, the pencil mark is reversible. A pen mark is less reversible, maybe impossible to take off. So my mind kind of goes to worst case scenario. Hopefully, you won't drop anything on the object. But yes, so to correct mistakes, but also to avoid permanent damage to the object.
And leaking pens are not so much a problem as they used to be, but they used to be terrible.
Oh, agreed. God, I remember leaking pens. So this is interesting just because I think this is a question. Some folks know too that I'm looking at the library information studies field, which I've been finding interesting. And someone asked, has there been discussion about condition reporting schemas with required basic fields and controlled vocabulary, similar to standards used in archives? Seems like we could create standards in our field, looking to lessons learned by archivists' desire to have their metadata interoperable between institutions. That is my pipe dream for the museum industry. I would like to hear your guys like answer to that as well, and just what your thoughts are. I know, obviously for us, lots of times you'll see those fabulous terms, good, fair, excellent, like those kind of deals. But what are your thoughts on, do you think we could come up with a common vocabulary and fields across museums, or do you think we're going to be still stuck in our interdisciplinary little silos sometimes?
I, I think about the art and architecture thesaurus and other nomenclature for databases. And I would kind of ask us collectively, how good are we at using those? It's kind of the same thing. We're not the best at archivists and librarians are great at doing that stuff. We fall down. I would love for there to be more consistent terminology. Um, but um, but we'd have to work a lot harder at buy-in from the community.
Yeah.
Well, for basic, I always refer to this, especially if I have not touched a specific material in a while. And teaching volunteers, which volunteers don't really do that, but anybody new coming in, and I've had interns over the years, this is like your first grade primer right here, to learn some language, because honestly, most of us are never going to really get past that point. Conservators do, but we are really not to that point, because like Catherine said, we have so many irons in the fire, and if you can get these 2 or 3 things done today, that's, hey, you're lucky you got them done, and move on to something else.
Yeah. That's something we talked about when we were planning this webinar, is like how we registrars use condition reports is different than how conservators use condition reports. There's been a couple things in the chat and the comments of people saying kind of do conservators reference our condition reports? Do we reference theirs? And I'm going to say yes, we do reference each other's condition reports. It's just the way that registrars go about it is because it's either in transit or we're trying to make sure damage isn't continuing to the object. So just the way we look at it are more like, okay, this is what's happening with the object right now. These are the issues we see. And then we refer those often to our conservator colleagues for help with them if they are part of the permanent collection. If it's a traveling exhibition, it's a little different because that's you're just kind of looking to be like, is more damage going to happen? And you're trying to track that down. I'm trying to find one other good question that will hit for everyone on here. Someone just asked, and I feel like because we can't avoid the AI, we're using an AI transcription service right now. Do you guys think there might be a place for AI in condition reporting at all? Or do you feel like, I know we're just talking about digital, like paper to, digital images sometimes, but have you had any thoughts about how AI might be able to help with condition reporting?
Interesting. I mean, I think off the top of my head, maybe you could use it to help you if you're not familiar with the type of material. You could say, hey, come up with things I should look for in this type of material or what kind of concerns. I don't know. That's an interesting question. What do you all think?
I just saw a neat comment that somebody just made that they use AI to convert their reports to digital. Um, I think that AI might in the future be useful for for noting changes. I think, if you take an image of a piece and take a second image of a piece that AI will be able to detect, um, you know, microscopic differences that maybe we, don't notice as easily.
And it
Yeah.
may help with the language when we are doubting what we're trying to say or describe, hopefully it can help build that and flesh that out for us.
Yeah, as I often tell people, I don't think AI is going anywhere, and I don't know how people feel about that, but I don't feel like it's going anywhere. So I look at it a lot as how can we use it as part of our toolbox to improve the products we're doing. And when it comes to transcription, like it's doing now, different things like you guys just mentioned, maybe comparing pictures to one another, it might be able to find some stuff that we don't see or haven't noticed. At the same time, you will always need the human to double check everything and to make sure things are accurate. So I always like to say that we can't get rid of us yet. We still will hopefully have a place in this role. So all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close out today's program. I'm going to put that very long thing in the chat again, which shows the resources where they're available, the link to the flyer and our survey. A huge thanks to Catherine, Heather, and Tommie. You guys, it's funny when we were talking about this book, when I first became an independent contractor a million years ago, I got hired to do a condition reporting job. And I was like, oof, it's been a minute. So what did I do? I reviewed the 2016 webinar and I got the 4th edition of the book to use, and I brought it with me on the job to make sure I knew what I was doing. So it's a great handbook. We appreciate all your time today. I will pull reports of the chat and the Q&A that we weren't able to get to and get it to our presenters. And if there's questions that are good for the community, we'll make sure to post. So thank you. And we will see you all in February, and keep an eye on our website, please, for upcoming program throughout late winter, early spring. So thanks everyone. Stay safe. And thanks to our presenters. See you in a month.